Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls, and you're listening to Rainbow Country.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
He is a communications strategist, a narrative strategist, a publicist. Plus, he's part of the LGBT community. Today on Rainbow Country, Brett Henne is my guest. Plus, my Big Brother Canada Season 11 coverage comes to an end with the top 3. That and more in episode 353, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hello, my name is Conchita.
And I'm Barbecue.
And my name is Hardcora. And we are the B Girls.
You're listening to
Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT FM in Toronto, and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada, from coast to coast to coast. The Yukon, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the east coast of Canada and Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's Gay and Lesbian chart, as well as being recognized as Canada's #2 LGBT podcast on Feedspot.com. So today, strategist and publicist Brett Henne is my guest and joins me to talk about his journey in the world of publicity that saw him working with networks like VH1, Lifetime Television, and Logo TV, where he oversaw the launch for RuPaul's Drag Race. Plus in hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. And on this episode, I'm featuring some new wave, some queer indie, and more. All that lies ahead as we start Journey 353 through Rainbow Country. First up, third place, Daniel. Runner-up, Claudia. And winner, Ty. The top 3 for Big Brother Canada, Season 11.
And then there were 3.
Wow.
Claudia, Daniel.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you both?
Feeling good. You know, it's pretty crazy coming out of this experience, but it's definitely a high. Feeling good, feeling happy to get out here.
Yes. Surprisingly feeling great. Thought I would feel a lot worse today. But I'm still feeling good and just so grateful for the experience and happy to be in the world again.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just jump right in. Claudia, you are the runner-up. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
You won the final HOH.
Did.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
You chose to take Ty to the final 2 seats. Do you still stand by that decision?
Yes, I do stand by that decision. You know, I was never afraid to sit next to him at the end of this game. I believed in the game that I played. I knew I played a good social game, and I competed, and I showed that. You know, I wasn't scared to compete against the compies because I knew I could do it, and I could win those comps as well. So I was never afraid to sit next to him. I believed in my game, and I don't regret anything that I did or the decision I made.
Daniel, thoughts on Ty winning season 11?
You know what? I did vote for Ty to win. I'm sorry. Ty faced a very hard battle in that house. And I think that people did underestimate how well he did end up socially using social game in his game. I don't even think he realized it at one point. But as it got to the end, he was positioned between two duos, and we all wanted to take him. And at the end, I respect that he was able to fight as hard as he did through that game. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he won. Not happy enough because I still think it should have been me, but I'm happy for him.
Daniel, you won POV, and you chose to save Ty.
Yes.
Why?
Let me explain that. At the time in the game, I wasn't really connected to that side of the house, and the people who seemed like they were really pushing the narrative of who was going on the block and stuff like that. I only had Zach, and Zach had just left the game. So I didn't have a personal connection to Ty anymore. I, at this point, was in the shadiest bunch with Kuzi and Anika, and I did know, we kind of all discussed with where the vote was going to go, and we had the idea that Dan was going to leave that week either way. So I used that as an opportunity for me. I already knew Ty was most likely going to stay in the house no matter what. So I used the POV on Ty so that I can bridge a relationship with him. I had no other way to bridge a relationship with him than to be like, look, I'm going to save you. He has the impression he was the target. And that did, in the end, actually work out for me. If we got to that final 5, I don't think that Ty would have saved me over Renee. And he almost did it until I brought that back up and said, listen, I showed you loyalty in this game. Yes, we've all been coming for you. But there's been times where I actually went out on a limb and saved you, where other people can't say that. And he did eventually switch his mind back to keeping me at that point. So it was a big move in my game to bridge a gap and make a relationship.
Claudia, let's talk about that double eviction.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. The first, you won the double eviction, HOH. Yeah. Congrats.
Thank you.
When you won, or prior to it, had you thought of all the permutations of who can go up and who could leave and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, apparently I didn't think about it enough because what ended up happening, I didn't see coming. I think going into that double eviction, I was so excited to win that HOH. And it was an opportunity where I could show Ty that I wanted to work with him. And I felt, that was what I wanted to do in that moment, was to keep him off the block and show him that. It's also smart to keep him off the block at that point in the game because he was winning every POV. So, but in the end, I didn't think through what was going to happen as far as him using the power of veto, putting me in that tough situation. You think that you think of everything, but I didn't think of that.
So was it your intention to essentially break up the girly pops?
Oh my gosh, no, not my intention. It's hard because you adapt in this game, and it was in my mind at that point that I did want to show Ty that I wanted to work with him. I saw Shanea's game, she was getting closer to Daniel C and to Anika, and I felt like I was getting kind of closer and working with Ty again, or the potential of Ty and I working together again. So it was really tough, and I think I saw our games going in different directions, but the reality is I wasn't sitting there with the intention of I'm going to break up the girly pops and that was what I wanted to do, because it wasn't I would have loved to both see Renee and Shanae in that final 5 with me and Ty and Daniel. That would have been my ideal situation. But it didn't go that way.
So Daniel, let's talk about Zach. How would you describe your game relationship with Zach?
Okay, so the thing with Zach is that he was very clearly in a power position in the early game. We all saw that right off the bat. I was struggling to fit in here, whatever. There are some bro guys in this house. Zach was just a really funny guy, and me and him got along in that way. We were joking around and stuff like that. And I knew that I would be able to get information from Zach. I think he was trying to do the same thing. It wasn't fully working out because we were just both we don't trust each other. But because we did get along on a personal level, the game relation trying to move forward was working out because he thought he would get information from me. I didn't have any to give him at the time. But in terms, because they were in such a powerful position with running HOHs and pushing narratives, I felt like he was keeping me safe. And eventually the gap between me and guys like Ty in the game.
So Daniel, this is a gay radio show. You and JM are part of the LGBT community.
Yes.
Early on in the game, at the start of the game, was there ever any talk between the two of you to potentially just, at least keep each other safe? Any talk about that early on?
So this was something that was actually one of the reasons I was having such a hard time at the beginning of the show as well. JM quickly was forming alliances. I don't want to say alliances, but he had a group around him of people that he was fitting in well with, where I was kind of not getting into that group. And I heard, and it's actually misinformation, but I did hear that one of the names that JM did bring up was Dan. And it was apparently the other Dan. I thought it was me at the time. So I was having a hard time connecting with JM because I thought off the bat, he didn't want to work with me in the game. But a few days had passed and we actually did start making a real genuine connection. And I think we were both just fans of this game. And for me to come in the game, a super fan, I already was like, ooh, be careful of super fans. They'll do anything that they have to do. And I think we both acknowledged that we were gamers. It was very hard when it came to the point where I was finally making a connection with him, but I was such a social, let me sit in the kitchen and not be involved in this messy first week. I know when you get involved in the beginning of the game, it could really crumble you for the whole game. So I was really just staying out of it. And when the narrative of getting JM out of the house was already so far out there was nothing I could do at that point. And it was actually very, very tough for me, with the mission that I had in the house to have not been able to align with JM earlier.
Daniel, you referenced the fact that you're a super fan. Weren't you in line auditioning for season 1?
I sure was. I was actually number 41. I still remember number 41 in the Toronto casting call.
Claudia, would you say that you were a fan, a super fan, or someone new to Big Brother?
I was a fan. I watched earlier seasons, but I feel like coming in the house and being around people like Daniel, I was like, I felt like I didn't know the game was maybe as much as I thought I did, but I was a fan. I watched those earlier seasons. I watched the Big Brother US, but yeah, still had a lot to learn coming in here.
So my last question for both of you, and Claudia, I'll start with yourself. Best part about playing Big Brother Canada?
Yeah, there are so many highlights and moments, but I think it all comes down to going through this experience. It pushed me emotionally, physically, mentally, all of that. The way I performed in comps, I'm very proud of that. So I think it's just all of that. I think I grew a lot in this experience, and I will definitely cherish that.
Yeah, for me, very similar answer. The experience as a whole, I just loved every element of it, seeing how I flourished or thrived as just being a genuine person, being myself in that house, which I didn't think that was how I would really play. And honestly, just all the moments of the experience, making the friends, the times we spent together, and just the glamour of it, in these competitions that you don't, you can't just be in a production like that. You're not just going to be in this hamster wheel every day, running in the vacuum. You know what I mean? The competitions were just so much fun. So just every element, every aspect of it was amazing.
To the two of you, Claudia, Daniel, well said, well done, well played. Congrats.
Thank you so much.
Claudia and Ty, it's time to announce our winner. One at a time, I'll let you know who the voter was and who they voted for. If you hear your name, that's a good thing. You need 5 votes to win. Good luck to you both. Dan S. has voted for Ty. Jonathan has voted for Ty. Santina has voted for Ty. That's 3 for Ty. Hope has voted for Ty. 1 more, and Ty is our new champion. Kuzi has voted for Ty. Congratulations, Ty. You have won season 11 of Big Brother Canada. You can both now make your way out of the house.
Ty, hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am well. You are the winner of Big Brother Canada Season 11. Congrats on that. Was there ever a moment when you doubted that you could win this game?
I would never say I doubted myself. I came in this house knowing that I was going to be a competitor, and obviously everyone goes into this game. Well, at least I hope everyone goes into this game thinking and hoping that they will win. But there was a time where I knew that the odds were not in my favor at all, that probably every odd possible was stacked against me. However, I just kept my head down. I kept working. I focused on the challenge that was in front of me. And I knew that if I could keep pushing through, eventually the odds and, the power would shift in my favor, which it ultimately did in the end. And here I am sitting in front of you as the winner against all odds.
So Ty, you've won the most competitions in Big Brother Canada history. What do you attribute that success to? What's your secret to winning all these comps, would you say?
Yeah, I still can't believe it. I didn't know I broke the record until after the fact. But I would say that just my journey in life and having to figure out life, I've always been an athlete. So, the physical comps were something I expected myself to do well in. But when it came to things like, the skill-based things or the puzzles and trivia, those are things that I had to work on throughout my life. I always did well in school because I wanted to make my mom proud, and I knew that I needed to put in the work. I wasn't, an exceptionally great student, but I was always good and above average. So I knew that coming into this game, my weakest points would be things like trivia, things like puzzles. So those were the things that once I was heading into those competitions, I knew I needed to focus and really make sure that I gave everything I got to pull out the win.
Ty, early on in the game, you teamed up with a bunch of really strong guys. Out of those guys, who would you say you were closest to?
That's hands down my guy, Zach. We only had 26 days together, but that was my guy, and he, is still my guy at this point. You know what I mean? I'll still keep screaming his name because me and him, we had a special bond, at least in my eyes. So that was definitely the person I was closest with. I definitely had good relationships with Dan, but unfortunately it was cut short and we didn't get to actually play the game together the way I wanted to. But Dan was my guy as well. I love Johnny, but I knew that, he felt slighted by my move against Rob. And I completely understood that. However, it wasn't against Johnny. It was more so my issue with Rob and Zach. And they just weren't able to get on the same page. And me having the relationship with Zach that I did, I needed to protect Zach because ultimately Zach was part of my vision for my endgame.
So let's talk about the Lettergate. Hope finds a letter in his sock that was sent in by his girlfriend. To cut a long story short, drama ensues and Zach walks off of the show. The two of you were going to essentially do it together. Why did you not walk off of Big Brother? Why did you not leave the show?
This is a very, complex situation because first of all, I don't know, but I don't think it's ever happened on a Big Brother Canada show where this situation was a thing. So it's not like I had anything to base my decision off of looking back in history, right? On top of that, I'm a new fan to the game, so I'm learning as I go. But to answer your question, we all were granted letters from home to kind of rectify that particular instance. And I got a letter from my mom that said she, watching me on Big Brother Canada was one of the greatest joys of her life. So that was a huge deterrent for me of walking off the show. And on top of that, I'm a very prideful person. So me knowing that this situation and the house guests that were involved in it took my guy out of the game or forced my guy to feel like he didn't want to be in the game anymore. I took that to heart and I'm like, I want to get my revenge. I want to come back in here and show these guys that, I'm gonna get even with them.
You're in the diary room with Zach, and the two of you are talking about leaving the show. Did you try, when he was literally walking out the door, did you try to talk some sense into him to keep him in the game?
At that time, I don't believe I tried to deter him. I was deterring him up until we got to the diary room. But by that point, I knew he had his mind made up and I knew how he felt about the situation. And I also didn't wrong him for feeling the way he did. I respected it because if it was me being pretty much forced out of the door because of a situation that, we felt was unfair or unjust, I probably would have felt the same way. And there probably wouldn't have been anything anybody could have told me to keep me in the game. So I understood and I respected his decision. So I didn't want to I did my best leading up to that point to try to keep his head in the game and say, like, just let's try to push through this. But I think by that time, his favor was already sealed as well. I mean, in certain parts of the game, you know what the outcome of an eviction is going to be. And he didn't want to give them the satisfaction of saying that they evicted him. So he wanted to go on his own terms, and I respected that.
What are your thoughts on him leaving the show?
Like I said, I just respect whatever decision he made that he felt was best for his game, was best for him as a person. Because ultimately, like, this isn't, it's just a game, but we're still being perceived and looked at by Canada, you know. So he wanted to go on in a way that he could at least, you know, preserve his pride and his dignity. From my perspective, at least that's what I was seeing, and I couldn't wrong him for that. So, of course, I would have wanted him to hopefully stay and see if we could flip the votes last second to keep him. But to be fair, I don't think that would have been the case. And like I said, I respect that he wanted to go out on his own terms, and there's nothing I could do to, you know, wrong him for that.
So, Ty, you are a former member of the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you for your service, first of all. What is tougher, being a former member of the Canadian Armed Forces or winning Big Brother?
Being a former, they're two completely different things. I don't even want to compare being in the Army and, you know, the men and women who serve our country. I don't want to compare that to a game like Big Brother. I have the utmost respect for the game of Big Brother. It is not easy by any measure, in any way, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. However, you know, the people who serve our country, they make sacrifices that nobody could understand. You know, even myself included. Thankfully, I was never deployed, but the people who get deployed, and people, even if they don't, just, you know, what it takes to be in the Canadian Armed Forces is something that, unless you're in it, you will never understand, much like Big Brother. So they're comparable in that sense, you know. Until you're in it, you don't understand the true gravity that it holds.
Hardest part about playing Big Brother?
I think the hardest part for me about playing Big Brother was realizing, well, I mean, I kind of already expected it, but having to accept the fact that not everybody, at least in my eyes, is as solid of a person as I am. Like, I went into that game knowing that I would have to play with a bunch of different personalities and people who were driven by different things and were motivated by different things. However, I know that when I go into a game, I'm not afraid to say I'm working with X, Y, and Z person. I'm coming for X, Y, and Z person. I'll tell you that straight to your face. I didn't need to play a sneaky game. I didn't need to play a snaky game. And going into the game, I was hoping that I would get that same energy. So, like, there wouldn't be any blind sides. I would know exactly what's going on and who I needed to be careful with. But I understand that not everybody is as confident in themselves and in their game, or maybe they just want to play a completely different strategy. So I didn't feel like I found people like myself in that game in terms of being a solid person and a very straightforward and direct person. So that was definitely a challenge I have to overcome.
Ty, my last question for you. Best part about winning Big Brother.
As the winner of season 11, I broke the record for the most wins in Big Brother history. I went to the finals with my showmans, who I told that I wanted to be there with, and I have $100,000 to my name now. So that is probably the best part. But I mean, just leaving my presence, making sure my presence was felt. I mean, I told Claudia multiple times, and Zach as well, that I would be proud to lose to people like them who I respected, who I played the game with. If Claudia had won, I would be just as proud, because I knew that I made it as far as I possibly could, and I left my mark on this game the way I wanted to. So that is probably the highlight, just making sure my presence was felt while I was still there.
Ty, well said, well done, well played. Congrats on winning Big Brother Canada Season 11. Well done.
Appreciate you.
Hi, everybody. This is Gino Vanelli. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
The 33rd annual Inside Out LGBT Film Festival runs in person in Toronto at the TIFF Bell Lightbox, Thursday, May 25th to Sunday, June 4th, and streams province-wide in Ontario. The best place to start? Check out the website, insideout.ca. There you can search for films by interest like BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color, Trans, Bisexual, Coming of Age, Non-Binary, Mental Health, and more. You can even search by format: documentary, narrative, or short. There are even films that are part of this year's festival that have been featured right here on Rainbow Country. Films like This Place, the award-winning film Something You Said Last Night, Queendom, as well as a new film, Runs in the Family, that premieres June 1st. And by the way, I'll have the filmmakers of Runs in the Family right here on next week's episode. The 33rd annual Inside Out LGBT Film Festival runs in person in Toronto at the TIFF Bell Lightbox, Thursday, May 25th to Sunday, June 4th, and streams province-wide in Ontario. For all things festival, insideout.ca.
Hi, this is Michael Anthony Alago, music executive, photographer, author, and you are listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Up next, communication strategist and publicist, Henne. Henne, hi, how are you?
I'm great, Mark. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for being here to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for that. You are a communications strategist. You are a publicist, a writer, a budding author. You and I have something in common that goes to Manhattan. Yours happened in 1989. Mine happened in the 90s. And I'm just curious if you want to take a stab in the dark what this commonality might be. Yours happened in 1989, mine in the 90s. Do you have any idea?
No. Do we know the same person? Do we hang out at the same club?
I have no idea if we know the same person or people or not, but we both stayed at the YMCA in Manhattan. I don't know if it was the same YMCA, but mine was the YMCA when I visited Manhattan in the 90s. It was near Chelsea, I believe.
I believe there was one on 23rd Street. I'm not sure if they had residential spaces there, but the first one I stayed at was the Sloan House YMCA, and that was on 34th and 9th, which some people call North Chelsea. I'm like, okay.
So it's fun to stay at the YMCA. Would you agree with that statement?
Ooh, I think for me it was a little scary because it was my first home in Manhattan. I went to school in Ohio. I'm from Ohio, a small town, and the college I went to was Bowling Green State University. 17,000 straight kids in the middle of a cornfield, which I thought was the perfect place for me when I first started college. But as I was going through college, I realized maybe something else was up. So 2 weeks after I graduated college, I took a train and into Manhattan. And I had the address of that YMCA on 34th Street. And I showed up with a couple bags and knowing that I wanted to make my home here, make my career here, come out here, and be the real me.
It's fun to stay at the YMCA. This is the name of your memoir, correct?
Correct.
And
yeah.
This memoir is a work in progress?
It is, yes. It's probably in the third, fourth draft. I've been blessed to be part of a great, supportive, and objective writing crew. Trying to get it out there to agents. I've had about 20 passes, but that's just 20 answers, closer to yes.
Exactly. So what gave you the idea to write your memoir? What sparked this for you?
I think when I got here, I was taken aback by how people themselves were taken aback about me and what I was doing. Because I was living in Hawaii, there was no phone in the rooms. And you may recall that. Or maybe when you were there, they actually had put in phones. Do you remember that?
I don't. I stayed in a little room that had like a bunk bed, and then down the hall was shared washrooms, that sort of thing. I was just there for a weekend. But
okay.
I don't remember a phone in the room per se.
Okay. The phone I used was down the hall, a payphone. So I was pumping quarters into the phone and calling up ads that I'd seen in the Sunday New York Times in the classified section when they had that in jobs. And I was looking for an assistant spot, a PR assistant or advertising agency assistant. And at that time, all those jobs were usually held by personnel agencies. So they made them sound very sexy in the ads in the New York Times. So I would pump in the quarters, and knowing I would have a limited time, I would say, "Hi, my name is Brett. I just moved here from Ohio. I'm living in a YMCA, and I majored in public relations, and I think I'd be great. So, yeah, how can I get you?" And quite often, people were like, "Who are you? Nobody does what you do anymore. We just want to meet you. Come on in." So going back to that, it's always been kind of a funny line or a great intro for me whenever I meet somebody in New York. I say, "Oh, yeah, I'm from Ohio. I stayed in a YMCA, to try to find a job with a payphone." And people are like, again, that's the craziest story I ever heard of. So I love to write. I love to journal. I was with this writing group, and I was like, let me just kind of flesh out those memories, those days. Because it was the last 4 months of the 80s. I got here right before Labor Day weekend, and I wrote about it all the way up until New Year's Day, 1990.
So communications strategist, narrative strategist, publicist, you're all of these things and more. But let's break them down. So communications strategist, what does that mean? What does that entail?
Let's say you are a brand, either a personal brand or a company, a small company. So with communications, it's important to let people know who you are, what you're doing, and how you can help them solve their problems. So it's tied to sales in a way, but it's how you express that. What is that elevator pitch, that one-line sentence that you can tell people what you do and why you do it? What is the broader story? What is your history? What is the reason for what you are doing and what you hope to achieve and accomplish with your business? And then ultimately, where communications really comes in, after you've helped build the building blocks of what those answers are, how do you express that? It should be in multiple ways. Do you have your own website, or do you have your own blog where you're consistently posting about new developments, new business wins, new products, or even your thoughts on what's happening in the industry that you're a part of? One of the other elements would be media relations or publicity, public relations. And that's when you go to the media and have them tell your story for you. So it's great. It gets that third-party endorsement, that credibility. And it, in some ways, some people see that as very weighty, that they are more likely to listen to your story if a reporter from a local paper or magazine that you read, is conveying that story, is sharing what they're doing. It's difficult to find the right reporter, the right outlet. There's such competition out there in terms of getting your story out. So you have to fine tune the pitch to that journalist about why you and your company, your brand, is important enough to write about. So it's lots of pitching. It's lots of researching. If you're going to do it right, you want to make sure that you are reaching out to people who cover your industry. You would be amazed how people just blindly send out thousands of emails to reporters and who have nothing to do with their industry. So they call it earned media, and you sure earn it. So I'm rambling, but that is communications and publicity kind of tied together.
Narrative strategies. What are narrative strategies?
Narrative strategies are ways to get your story out there, but in different ways, in different audiences. Let's say, Mark, you are a queer content producer. You are a radio host. So how do we get the media interested in you and your story? So we would develop different pitches and different strategies. Is it your hometown angle? Is it this is only one element of multiple things that you do? Is it you have incredible hobbies that led to the certain lane? So it's fine-tuning everything that you are, distilling it down to a story pitch that a journalist would want to write about.
VH1, Lifetime Television, Logo TV. These are some of the networks that you worked with, you were part of. Any interesting celebrity stories you can share? Because inquiring minds want to know. Because I'm sure you dealt with some certain celebrities when you were at some of these outlets.
Sure, I did. I always tried to let my teams handle the celebrities, and my job was usually to handle the CEOs and the executives and make sure that they felt comfortable, or to get photo ops with the celebrities. Some great stories. VH1 has they had a show called Mob Wives. They were the spouses of husbands or daughters of men who'd been arrested for alleged mafia activities. So it was about their lives, dealing with it and coping with that aspect as their fathers and husbands were in jail, which kind of sounds crazy, right? And I was petrified. But once you met these ladies, they were so kind and so respectful. So I really enjoyed working with them. My team and I launched RuPaul's Drag Race to the press. So we got to work with Ru and some of the queens from the first season. I remember we did a huge press conference. It was part of a semi-annual gathering of TV critics from across the country. And it was really amazing to introduce Ru and the queens to these critics who were from other cities in America. So I don't want to say it was maybe their first time seeing a drag queen, but it was something definitely new for them. And it was, I think I heard one of the most lively press conferences during that session, because we had the drag queens out in the audience with microphones, and they would, hold it for the reporters who had a question. Rue, wore a suit, but had on leopard skin boots, which is kind of amazing. So that was a very memorable moment of how we were introducing Drag Race to the television press for the first time. And look at it now. It's 10 years at least. It just keeps going.
What do you think of the success of RuPaul's Drag Race? Because now it's global.
Yes, I just saw headlines recently about Italy is going to get its own version of RuPaul Drag Race. I think it's amazing and incredible, and I am thrilled about the global expansion. I think that's very smart. I love the show because it's a world that most people don't know or don't understand. And I think the best part of the show for me is when the queens are in the dressing room and they're getting ready for to lip sync for their lives or whatever, the final round. And they really open up about their personal memories and how their families, in many cases, ostracize them. So it really personalized these contestants for viewers and really connected them to their sometimes painful journeys. And I don't think people realize that. And I think they're also very motivating. They're brave, and they are a good role model for everybody. I remember several years ago, I was on a plane and got up to use the restroom, and two junior high kids, probably a brother and sister, were glued on their iPads, and they were watching RuPaul, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, how great that they're seeing these empowering messages. So that's what I think about RuPaul.
In 1989, you moved to Manhattan, and you said that you had a terrifying secret. What was that terrifying secret?
Oh, well, that I was gay. But it was a terrifying secret in Ohio because I didn't want anybody to know that I was gay. At that time, I didn't feel comfortable with being gay, with showing my true self. And it was also a very scary, challenging time because HIV/AIDS was so prevalent. And so many people assumed at that time, if you were gay, that, you had AIDS or you were going to die of it. So it was a pretty heavy load to carry around by myself in Ohio. So I felt that moving to New York, I could be me and I could get to know people like me and become part of a community where I could learn and grow. So that was the terrifying secret.
So in 89, you moved to Manhattan. You had this terrifying secret that you are gay. This is in 89, the early years of the AIDS epidemic. You're there on your own in Manhattan. Those must have been some heady times for you.
They were, yet really exciting as well, and really.
What motivated you to, get on that payphone and put those quarters in and make those calls so that you can land a job or an interview or something? What was the motivating factor for you?
I did not want to go back home. I felt that if I did, that would have signaled that I had failed in my mission. Because when I told everyone that I was leaving for New York. My family, my friends said, don't do it. Don't do it. It's too big, too scary, too expensive, too this. So I did get a job at a PR firm, and it was one of the largest in the city. And I was an assistant for an account executive. And then ultimately they tried to give me a second account executive, but that didn't last long because I'd never been an assistant before. I had had some great internships in Ohio where I did a lot of public relations and writing, and it was pretty great. But handling multiple telephone lines at a busy Manhattan office wasn't apparently my forte, so I got fired. And I had been miserable because the people I worked for after 2 or 3 weeks I knew were just not nice. They were just not nice, very stressed, very nasty people. So I went home, back to another YMCA, because at the Sloan House on 34th Street, you could stay there for 25 days until the city decided or declared that you were a vagrant. So you only had, according to city regulations, 25 days to be able to stay at that particular YMCA. So I moved to another one on West 63rd, between Broadway and Central Park West. And I had gone back there, and I called home, and I called my father, and I said, I just got fired. And he was very supportive. And then at the end of the call, towards the end of the call, he said, so I guess this means you're coming home. And I was shaken out of my blues. And I said, no. I started laughing. I was like, no way. I'm not losing. I'm going to win. I'm going to get another job, and I'm going to make it here. So, much to his chagrin, because he was very worried. He was very concerned about his 21-year-old son living in YMCAs by himself in New York City.
And like Mary Tyler Moore, you did make it there.
I did. Yeah, the first Y was more like an international youth hostel, whereas the second Y was more for men traveling, men staying there for longer periods of time. So it was just how shall we say, a more risque environment that opened my eyes, my little Ohio eyes, to some things.
When growing up for yourself, when did you recognize that you were gay? When did those thoughts, those feelings start becoming conscious for you? When did that start happening for you?
6th grade, I had a little breakdown in my head about, oh my God, I think I'm gay or queer, because back then it was queer or faggot, and you did everything you could not to be called that. And I don't know what really made me think that, but I just knew I was different. And I think that's what we hear from a lot of queer people just growing up. They knew that they felt different, that they were different from everybody else. So it was something that I didn't want to be, because at that time, it felt to me that I would be ostracized for that I would be made fun of, that I would be bullied. So I just buried it. I buried it and focused more on my schoolwork, focused on developing more friendships, developing school activities, participating in student council and this and that, and plays and musicals, which, okay. But in my school district, everyone participated in plays and musicals. And it just stayed buried for a long time. And then I didn't really let myself identify as being gay until my first year of college. And I had gone home for Thanksgiving, and a neighborhood and school friend had come over. He had gone the military route, and he was also home as well. And we're just kind of sharing stories, swapping stories about our experiences. And then he started talking about this guy that he was hanging out a lot with. And then, waking up with him. And I was like, oh, you're gay? Yeah. Then I thought you knew. I'm like, no. So, I mean, kind of yes, but we never, of course, spoke about it because you didn't back then. And then as that's going on, my mind is processing, oh my gosh, I know someone who's gay. And the other person I know it's gay is me. Then I realized, okay, I'm gay, but I'm on this campus of 17,000 straight kids. So what does that mean? How does that really roll out? So it kind of remained for me a dream deferred. I felt again that maybe Ohio wasn't the place for me at that time to be the real me and fulfill all that I wanted to do. So again, dug deeper into the studies and got as much experience as I could with internships, et cetera. And kind of had in the back of my mind, well, I'm either going to New York or LA because I majored in journalism and public relations with the thought of going into PR. And at that time, it was best to be in a big city to accomplish that. And New York was closer. And I had been there before once on a class trip in high school. So there's a little bit of familiarity there.
So I know that you're working on your memoir, but through your memoir and through your blog, Little Bread Big City, once your memoir does come out, and I hope you'll let me know because I'd love to have you back on to get the word out about it. But what do you hope audiences will come away with once they've checked out your blog or your memoir when it does come out? Is there a message, or are there messages that you hope audiences will come away with?
I want people to know the value of everyone's journeys. I think it's important for everyone to put their story out there in their own way, in their own channels, their own methods. I also think, I know I don't want people to forget the AIDS crisis. It's something that really defined my gay experiences. It's something that my friends and I were afraid of. They were very scary times, and I just don't want people to forget them, or the people that we lost for those years.
Well said.
And now you probably hear fire trucks going down my street live from New York.
Well, Brett Henne, I have to say thank you so much for your time. Well said, well done. Thank you for being on the show.
I am so honored, Mark. I mean, I told you I was anxious because I'm the guy. I connect people. I set people up with. You wanted to interview me? So I'm very honored, truly. So thank you so much. And thank you for your support and for your program and how you're helping everyone to tell their own stories too.
Every voice matters.
It really does. And today is no different. It's not less important, that's for sure.
For even more on today's guest, simply check out his website, bretthenne.com.
The phone rings. I got a message from the mayor. He's going to call me back the next day. I get the call, and he said, if you'd accept, we'd like to honor you with the key to the city. There was an event later that year in May. Just a key, right? Like, key to what? A decent job, a good singing career. It's really a metaphor, but it's history. So a reporter wants to talk to me and says, so it's a key, right? Like, what's the big deal? I said, well, not everybody gets the key. So I looked it up, and I guess it is kind of a big deal.
The date, May 17th, 2018, when trans activist Susan Gapka made history by becoming the first trans woman to be presented with the key to the city of Toronto. By the way, past recipients include Rush and the Raptors. And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, simply head over to marktara.com, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, check out my socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including audible.com and iHeartRadio. Finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, despite all the craziness in the world these days, know this, that we are living in days of making dreams come true, so believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, I'm Agnes. My new record, Magic Still Exists, is out now. You are listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.